On December 11th, 1917, in Houston, Texas, black soldiers that belonged to the 3rd Battalion, 24th U.S. Infantry Regiment were executed. Now, let me take you back to July of that year. In July, that particular battalion was stationed to help protect white soldiers that were heading to Europe to fight in the war. Now, while those black officers or soldiers, I should say, were stationed there in Houston, they would constantly be harassed, beaten, and a whole host of other things by the Houston police force. That's what it was called at the time. And so on August 23rd, the black soldiers finally decided they had enough. So about 150 of them went down to the Houston police station to stage a peaceful protest. But once they got there, they were met by an angry mob of white men. And so a melee ensued where civilians, police officers, and soldiers were killed. Now, eventually, 157 black soldiers were court-martialed. Now, they had 3 trials. In the first trial, it was about 63 officers that were tried. 54 of them were found guilty on all charges, leading to 13 soldiers being sentenced to the death penalty, which they were hanged, right? All right, so now during the second and third trials, now at this time, a lot of notoriety came to the case and people were up in arms over what had happened to the first set of soldiers. Okay, so as far as, you know, their death penalty. So, and also I should say they were denied an appeal process, like it wasn't going to happen. So within the second and third trial, those soldiers were also found guilty and sentenced to death and life sentences. And so those particular soldiers in the second and third case, they were able to appeal. And by that time, President Woodrow Wilson got involved and he says, okay, because 16 of the soldiers in the second and third trial, they actually got the death penalty. And he says, well, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, we'll commute the other sentences, but 6 of them, they have got to go. So eventually, on December 11th, 19 soldiers, by the time it got to that point, 19 soldiers were hung. Black soldiers were hung due to just sticking up for themselves, saying, hey, we're here to do a job and we're being harassed by the police department. And so I saw that trending on Twitter and I was like, well, this would be an interesting story because a lot of people just do not know that happened. Now, of course, we know that American black soldiers back in the day were continuously harassed and even lynched while wearing their uniform. And so when I think about how people are upset that somebody like Brittany Griner was released over that of Paul Whelan, the Marine who was stuck over in Russia in a prison due to being tried and found guilty of espionage. And I hear about how, he fought for this country, and he probably did. So this really doesn't have a lot to do with him. But I think about the case that I just told y'all about the 19 soldiers that were hung because they were sticking up for themselves, because the U.S. Army and the Houston Police Department was messing with them. I'm like, we shouldn't be focused on Paul Whelan. We should be remembering history in that, well, while the U.S. Armed Forces, they go out and do certain things, they also were not kind to our people. Along with the police, we don't have to talk about the police because we know how they do our people, but y'all should know this. I didn't know, so I thought y'all should know. That's what happened to our black men who were simply just trying to say enough, right? And the president then, Woodrow Wilson, he didn't see that all of the men should be set free and that, oh, well, only 6 of them need to hang, right? So he was dirty and no good as well. It should also be said that when the NAACP and a lot of other organizations eventually got involved, that the men who were sentenced to life sentences, they were overturned and they were released. But again, 19 soldiers were hung due to flat out racism by the armed forces and the police department. So y'all tell me what you think of this unfortunate story. And for more insightful commentary, please subscribe to this channel and my channel, The Demetra Kaye Show, here on YouTube. Peace.